I was headed west on FM 170 along the Rio Grande, the ribbon of asphalt that hugs the river between Lajitas and Presidio. It was late March of this year, a moonless Wednesday, the kind of clean darkness you only get in the desert. My load was light, just camping gear and groceries. I'd left Terlingua after a taco stand dinner and 2 Topo Chicos, no alcohol. The air was about 60 degrees and bone dry, with that faint mineral smell the river carries when it runs low. If you've ever driven 170 at night, you know the road climbs and folds like it's shrugging the desert off its shoulders. A casual driver can feel like the only person left alive. Around 11:40 p.m., just past a viewpoint where people park to watch the sunrise, I saw the red gravel shoulder. It's common out there, crushed volcanic rock, rust-colored, framing the blacktop. What wasn't common was the figure standing at the edge where the shoulder drops toward the brush. No flashlight, no car, no headlamp. He was facing away from me toward the river. I slowed because that's what you do. Big Ben changes your habits. You help first and decide what's weird afterward. As my headlights washed over him, I noticed his clothes didn't match the night. No backpack, no hat, nothing to block the wind except a thin, gray button-down tucked into slacks. He didn't turn when I rolled down the window. "You good, man?" I called. "You need water?" His head tilted slightly, like he was listening to the river, and I remember an impulse to check my rear view. Nobody was behind me. No lights ahead either. It was just me, the river, and this guy at midnight. "You shouldn't pull over here," he said, very calm. No accent, no slur, just a voice as flat as the gravel beside my tires. "They patter faster when the car stops. Who does?" I asked. I didn't laugh. Something about the wind made me feel like a laugh would land wrong. It was whispering through the creosote, and I could smell the crushed resin. He finally turned. His eyes reflected my low beams just for a second, animal bright, then looked normal. I figured it was a trick of the light. His face was older than I'd expected, late 40s maybe, deeply tanned like someone who spends daylight outdoors. He lifted a hand toward the slope, palm down. "You hear it?" he asked. I killed the engine and the desert opened. The rush of the river, the hiss of my cooling brakes, the static of insects. Then, under it, a noise like handfuls of dry beans poured onto tin, tick-tick, moving across the slope below us. It came in sets, then stopped, then moved again at a different angle, too fast and too coordinated to be animals stepping on gravel. My skin felt like it had turned into a field of needles. I stood half out of the car. The stars were clear enough to slice. "Coyotes?" I said weakly. "They don't patter," he said. "Coyotes scuff and scratch. Cats pad, javelina clatter. These patter like small hands. They've learned the shoulder is a good drum." He started backing away from the drop, eyes fixed on the black brush. I tried to focus my headlights down the slope. The beam picked out yucca bayonets, a black tangle of mesquite, the pale chalk lines of dry arroyos. The patter ran from left to right, then right to left, then straight up. My brain was assigning sizes, the speed of rabbits, the weight of raccoons, but nothing matched the rhythm. It was two. "Articulate. Get back in the car," he said, calm again but urgent at the edges. "They come up if you block the wind. What are they?" I asked, as the sound rose now like hundreds of fingertips drumming the lip of a plastic cooler. He said, "They like running water and roads. Roads especially. Flat, dark, warm. All they need is a place to listen. That's what the red gravel is for. It tells them what's above it. I don't know why I didn't just drive. Some part of me wanted to see one thing, one animal, one person, something to give the sound a body. I reached for my phone light, and the man reacted so sharply I flinched. "Don't shine it," he hissed. They love the little sun. The little sun makes people freeze. As if on cue, the pattering stopped. The wind dropped too, like a held breath. The river sounded louder and farther at the same time. I realized my left foot had sunk a half-inch into the crumbly shoulder, and when I pulled it back, the gravel stuck to my boot like magnet filings. Each piece was warm. "Okay," I said, forcing my voice to be normal. "I'm going to go. You should come with me. There's a gas station in Presidio." He shook his head. "I can't cross that bridge again." "What bridge?" "Any of them. Something moved beneath the lip of the shoulder, not up the slope under it." The red stone shifted in a wave the length of my car door, like something enormous was sliding just below the surface. I stumbled back into the driver's seat and slammed the door. The patter tripled, hitting the metal of the undercarriage from beneath. I felt it through the pedals. Fingertip quick, arrhythmic, testing. "Get in," I yelled, reaching across to shove the passenger door open. The man didn't move. He looked past me at the center console like he could see the highway map there through the plastic. "You'll bring them down the road," he said, and I swear I believed he wasn't threatening me. He sounded sad. "But that's where they go anyway." "That's why there are so many crosses." I fired the engine. The pattering paused in my head. It was like they were listening, and then the sound moved behind, skittering under the trunk. I pulled back onto the blacktop so fast I fishtailed. In the mirror, my headlights lit the red shoulder, the man, and the slope falling to the Obsidian River. He raised one hand, not for a ride, but like someone closing a door gently. Then the shoulder rippled again, a wave running knee-high along the edge where my tires had been. I drove to Presidio with the windows up and the vents closed, my hands shaking. When I got out to pump gas 20 miles later, I noticed the fine red dust clinging to my wheel wells was moving in tiny cascades like sugar settling. I brushed it off with a rag, and the rag felt electrified, snapping at my fingers. I went back to 170 at noon the next day to prove to myself it was nerves. The spot looked ordinary, tourist ordinary even. Sun on the river, hawks above, heat waves bending the air. But when I kicked at the shoulder with my boot, the red gravel made a hollow sound, not the crunch of stone. I imagined a deeper space under the surface, and I didn't kick again. I keep thinking about what he said, about bridges and crosses and the road teaching things how to listen. Whenever I pass a roadside memorial now, I look at the ground, not the sky. The desert holds its own kind of water. Some of it runs. Some of it waits. I'm a rideshare driver in Austin who takes the late slots because my day job runs long. I like SH 130 when I have to push to San Marcos or Seguin, no traffic, big sky, the low whine of tires on concrete. It was early January, a Tuesday, 2:15 a.m., the kind of cold that makes the air feel blue. I dropped a bar back in Buda, grabbed coffee at a gas station that smelled like burned syrup, and merged onto 130 southbound. The speed limit there is ridiculous. I set cruise at 85 and tried not to feel like a criminal. Somewhere near the Mustang Ridge exit, my vents started blowing cold. Not the cabin, you know when your heater's on and the air starts warm at your ankles? It wasn't that. It was a little ribbon of cold at my neck, just under my ear, like someone had cracked a back window. I checked both rear windows were up. The radio was off. The engine hum was steady. "Okay," I said out loud, "because that's my bad habit. We're not doing this." I glanced at the rear view. My back seat was empty. The headrest behind me was tilted slightly right. I made a mental note to straighten it later. Then I saw the lane beside me was empty too. For a toll road in the middle of the night, it was nothing I hadn't seen, but it felt emphasized, like the highway had shifted an inch to the left and lost all its noise. The ribbon of cold along my neck slid down across my shoulder and reached forward, like a draft moving ahead of a person walking. The windshield fogged at a single point the size of a quarter dead center, then cleared as if a fingertip had traced a circle. I put a palm to the glass. It was dry. "Hey Siri, call Josh," I said, and immediately felt stupid for trying to bring a voice into this. The phone chirped and failed to connect. The service bars were all there, but nothing happened. A tiny bead of sweat popped at my hairline. It didn't roll, it stood there and cooled until it felt like a shot of menthol. I changed lanes just to have something to do. As I crossed the dashed white lines, I heard the faintest sound over my tires. A tick. Not the pebble in the tread tick, this was deliberate, like a fingernail gently tapping the driver's side glass. Not fast. 1, 2, 3. I looked over. The passenger window was black, and I could see myself faintly in it, my mouth align. The tapping came again from my door, lower down. Like someone crouched outside was testing the seam where the door meets the body dot at the next pull-off. I slowed and signaled even though no one was around. The shoulder lights stuttered by in hard white flashes that made the inside of the car look too bright, like a hospital. I came to a full stop, hazards on, heart beating hard enough to twist my stomach. I told myself, get out, check the tire, walk around, prove it's the road, not your head. I opened the door. The cold was immediate and localized, as if the air in the lane itself was refrigerated. I could feel the edge of it against my shins where the lane ended and the shoulder began. That makes no sense, I know. But stand with one foot on your kitchen tile and one on the carpet and tell me you can't feel the line. Flat? I said, crouching. The tire was fine. The pavement, which had been rattling the car a little when I drove, felt like the smoothest concrete ever poured. I put my hand down. It sucked the heat from my palm in an instant. I hissed and pulled back. There was no wind, but the little paper toll receipt in my Q folder rattled like breath was blowing across it. My hazard lights clicked. Somewhere behind, over the hum of the road, I heard running. Not toward me parallel, in the far lane across the median. Footsteps fast enough to be a sprint, keeping pace with someone who wasn't there. Yo! I shouted without planning to. You okay? The running stopped like a track cut off. Then came the tapping again, this time from inside the driver's side door, a patient. Polite test in a vertical line up to the window. I stood too fast and wobbled. Something in the car side, like a seal breaking. The cold ribbon that had been tracing my neck slid down my spine and coiled at my belt line. Exactly the sensation of a hand resting flat and heavy where no hand should be. I fumbled back into the seat and slammed the door, hard enough to make the mirror shake. The tapping paused, then resumed 3 inches to the left, as if the shape doing it had adjusted its posture. I jammed the shifter into drive and pulled out too aggressively. Tires whispering on the polished concrete dot at 85 again, the ribbon of cold withdrew. The windshield fogged at the center in a perfect circle, then cleared. The toll receipt lay flat and still. My phone pinged, Josh calling back. I didn't answer. I didn't want a witness to how my voice would sound. I stayed in the center lane for 15 miles, irrationally convinced that whatever it was favored edges, shoulders, seams, borders. I imagined how many crashes I'd driven past and filed under driver error. The radio might click on. A voice might say a name. But it didn't. The highway resumed its impersonal hum. Weeks later, I picked up a guy from the airport oil field worker, boots still dusty. He asked me if I preferred 35 or 130. 130, I said automatically. Less drama. He nodded like he knew exactly what I meant. Yeah, he said, but don't stop when the air goes cold. It's like a trotting horse, won't bite you long as you keep it moving. What won't? I asked. He stared out at the smooth lane, the rhythm of reflectors passing like pulse. Whatever, learn to run where we don't look. I sleep fine, mostly. But sometimes, on a random evening, the back of my neck cools exactly where that ribbon settled, and I reach up to touch it and feel nothing. Just a memory of the lane where the air is colder by design. In high school, I used to love midnight drives out toward Marfa. You go to see the lights, you make out under a blanket, you convince yourself the mystery is yours alone. This was last summer, late July, a dry heat wave that made the grass along you. 90 the color of old rope. My girlfriend, now ex, was half asleep in the passenger seat with her hand on my forearm, and I was thinking about the way the stars there stack like spilled salt. We'd pulled off at a dirt lot near a cattle guard to stretch. You could smell dust and hot iron. A semi rolled by, then the world went quiet except for the cicadas. The sky felt like it had been lowered on a wire to just above the fence posts. When we got back in the car, a white pickup I hadn't noticed before was parked 50 yards down the shoulder, facing our direction. No lights, no driver silhouette. Still, nothing to panic about. Ranchers exist. We merged back onto 90, driving toward the viewing area, the tape of highway sliding black and smooth. 10 minutes in, the pickup turned on its headlights and eased. On to, settling at the same speed like a boat taking our wake. I checked my mirror more than once. No license plate on the front, which isn't unusual in Texas, but still made my throat feel dry. I told myself it was a coincidence. You okay? My girlfriend mumbled. Yeah, I lied. Just getting the good lane. We passed a reflector that had been bent sideways, and the pickup drifted closer, almost into the rumble strip. I sped up 5 miles. It did too. We passed a sign for a rest stop closed for maintenance, and the lights behind us flicked off. For 3 seconds, then on again, a flashbang to my nerves. I wanted to exit onto a county road, but that would give too much privacy to whatever this was. So I picked the option that felt worst. I pulled to the shoulder and stopped. Why are you stopping? She asked, fully awake now. Don't stop. If he's a rancher, we look crazy. If he's not, we need to know. She said my name in a tone that means you're about to have a fight later. I rolled down my window halfway and rested my left hand on the glass. The pickup coasted up, lights washing the rearview mirror, then braked 20 yards behind us and idled. Its engine sounded ragged, like the timing was off. No door opened, no hand came out. The cicadas went quiet. Sir? I called, trying for authority. The only answer was heat clicking in the engine block. I could smell something sweet, antifreeze sharp. On impulse, I flashed my hazards twice. The pickup killed its headlights again, only it didn't go dark. It stayed white. Not glowing, not luminescent, just visible in a way that didn't harmonize with the night. Like it still had a layer of daylight on it. My girlfriend whispered, "Please go," and touched my shoulder so lightly it felt like a static shock. Behind the white truck, 50 yards farther back, something crossed the highway at a measured walk. If the lights had been on, I'd have called it a man thin, tall, arms long enough that his hands hung at mid-thigh. But the shape didn't match any person I've ever met. It kept its head canted as if listening to the asphalt, not the air. When its foot, if that was a foot, touched the center line, every reflector in that stretch flashed once like an eye squeezing shut. I put the car in drive. The pickup's headlights blasted on so bright it bloomed my vision. I floored it, and we launched, the white lines flicking past in staccato, the sound in the cabin rising to a high insect whine. "Call 911, I said. She tried. The call failed. No service message. Then her phone lit anyway, without a carrier name, and for half a second the lock screen displayed a road icon I'd never seen before, 2 parallel lines, a dot between them, and a smaller dot off to the right like a misplotted exit. She dropped the phone like it had burned her. The pickup matched our speed perfectly, never trying to pass, never falling back. Its high beams didn't dim for an approaching semi didn't move at all. When the semi passed us, its slipstream rocked my car, but the pickup didn't budge. I glimpsed the driver then, or thought I did a black absence where a person should have sat. Not shadow, not tinted glass, more like an area the night preferred to keep for itself. We reached the viewing area turnout and I took it at 30 without thinking. There were 3 other cars there, a family with lawn chairs, a couple with a DSLR on a tripod. The pickup didn't pull in. It kept going, still white, still wrong, then blinked out of existence as if someone had closed a window onto that part of the highway. The family's little boy cheered because the Marfa lights did something. Just then, a cluster of them darted up and split apart like beads of mercury. Everyone looked where he pointed. No one looked back down the road where the pickup should have been. We stayed until dawn because it felt like the only protective thing. We watched the sky go from velvet to slate to the soft blue that makes you forget you were ever afraid. When we finally left, my girlfriend asked, like she was trying to confirm. A shared detail. Did you see its tailgate? The brand? No, I said. Did you? She pressed her lips together. It said lone. No star. Just the word. And then it said 1 lane. And then it said nothing. We broke up a month later for reasons that have nothing to do with any of this. But sometimes, at night I think about the way those reflectors blinked like eyelids when the tall thing crossed. Roads are not neutral. They teach you where to look and what to ignore, and there are things that have learned to use that curriculum better than we do. My uncle has a cabin near Wimberley, up off Ranch Road 12, not far from the stretch they call Devil's Backbone. The hill country there is all cedar and limestone, with drop-offs that make you feel like the earth forgot to edit itself. I've driven that road 100 times, always keeping a respectful hand on the wheel because locals say the curves are hungry. It was a mild night in late October. I left a friend's barbecue around 10:30 p.m., the smoke still in my hair, the taste of pecan pie sugar on my teeth. Fog hung low in the valleys like someone had poured milk into them. I keep my mirrors clean, habit from my dad. And I mention that because what I saw first came through the glass dot at a bend they call the mirror turn unofficially, because the limestone reveals your headlights like a lighthouse, the rear view filled with another set of lights tight to my bumper. I checked my speed, 38. Not slow. The car behind me stacked its beams so neatly under mine it looked like a double exposure. I flicked my turn signal for the turnout up ahead to let them pass. Except when I signaled right, the lights signaled left. I laughed once under my breath and told myself somebody had installed their bulbs wrong. I eased into the turnout. The car behind me didn't pass. It pulled in behind, bumper to bumper, and idled. I could see nothing but bright geometry and the outline of a grille that didn't match any brand I knew. Too simple. Like a mock dash-up. I put the car in park and waited. Maybe they thought I had a problem and wanted to help. The fog swelled up from the low ground and lapped at the guardrail like a slow tide. I could smell cedar crushed somewhere unseen. Damp and green. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your mirror is looking at you. I squinted at it, looked up at the rear view reflexively, and saw not my eyes but the fog bank reflected, moving in a way fog shouldn't. It didn't drift or curl. It walked forward, the mass of it shivering along the shoulder like a person wrapped in a quilt. I turned around. The fog outside the rear window was still, meek as breath on glass. In the mirror it approached the back of my car and raised a featureless face to the glass. I said out loud, "Nope," and reached for the shifter, but the car behind me bumped my bumper gentle but steady, like a hand on your spine keeping you in your chair. My hazard lights clicked on by themselves. The mirror showed the fog figure raising an arm that existed only in the reflective world, and pressing a palm the size of mine to the inside of the glass. My own reflection did the same motion, delayed by a beat, like the mirror was a tired mimic. I rolled down the window an inch in the night, Sound came in the insects and distant dog barks, and under it, a small, respectful scratching at the rear windshield. In the mirror, the fog figure tilted its head. Its hand slid sideways across the glass until it matched where my reflection's hand had been. I moved my hand experimentally. The reflection didn't follow. Instead, it tapped the inside of the mirror, exactly where my ear level would be if I leaned close. Tap, tap, tap. The unknown number texted again. Drive only by the mirror. It loves when you trust it. A third message followed before I could react. It loves more when you don't. I put the car in drive and pressed the accelerator without looking away from the mirror. A test I told myself I'd do for 3 seconds. The car behind me rolled out in perfect sync, still glued to my bumper. The mirror showed the road coiling ahead, fog staged at the shoulders like seated crowds. I kept my eyes on the glass longer than 3 seconds. I kept them there until the bend straightened, then forced myself to look at the actual road. For one terrifying instant, the world outside did not match the mirror. The turnout was on the left, not the right. The guardrail was wood, not metal. The fog in reality lay in still strips. The mirror still showed it moving with intent. I snapped my gaze back to the asphalt. The steering wheel twitched in my hands, correcting some drift I can't swear I caused. The car behind me vanished from the rear view like a switch had been thrown. My phone lit again. Thank you. Then another text from the same number, immediate. Don't let it drive home. I took the next straightaway at a cautious 30, talking to myself like a coach watched the lane. Check the mirror, check the road, breathe. When I stopped at my uncle's cabin, I covered the rear view with an old gas station receipt and a rubber band without turning it toward me. I felt silly, but I did it anyway. In the morning, my uncle asked why there were handprints on the inside of my back window. They were my size, not child small. The glass felt faintly colder where each print had dried. We washed them off with a hose. The water ran in lines like letters trying to form. I've driven Devil's Backbone since. It's still beautiful and mean. I still keep my mirrors clean. But sometimes, on that particular turn, I angle the glass an inch toward the passenger seat so that if something wants to look back, it has to look at no one. My dad taught me to measure distance by landmarks. The water tower, the billboard with the stuck light, the live oak that survived the last storm. That's why I know there's a mile missing on the old stretch of 281 north of Marble Falls. Night makes liars of distances, sure. But I've driven that road every other Sunday for years to bring groceries to my grandmother. And the Sunday I'm talking about was ordinary on purpose. It was late May, stormlight left over, but no rain. The sky was that bruised purple you get after lightning moves on. The air smelled like wet limestone and diesel, a highway church incense. I passed the BBQ joint with the cow statue, the feed store with the windmill that never turns, the little county road that dogs use like a sidewalk. My odometer read 67,412 when I crossed the low bridge, and I know because I said it out loud, ritual by now, the road rose gently through scrub and shallow cuts. Then it didn't. I don't mean it flattened. I mean the sensation of forward movement hiccuped. My tires hummed one tone, then fell silent without slowing, then hummed again on the other side in the same key. The radio talk radio. A guy complaining about traffic in a city I wasn't near silenced mid-sentence and came back with a different advertisement, like a commercial break had been spliced into the world. I glanced at the odometer reflexively. 67,414, 2 miles? No, the water tower should have been on my right. It wasn't. The billboard should have been on my left, its broken bulb dark. Not there. The live oak at the crest of the hill should have snagged the sky. It didn't. Instead, there was a gentle depression where the hill should have been, and in that dip stood an empty picnic table made of concrete. the kind they used to pour for roadside parks in the 60s. I had never seen it before. I pulled off without thinking and rolled to a stop beside the table. The concrete was clean, untagged. No ants marched. No birds roosted. The grass around it was cut short, as if tended by someone who didn't want to leave clippings. There was a trash barrel with no liner, and inside it a single plastic bottle weighted with 3 inches of clear water. My headlights made a soft rectangle across the table. The stain in the center looked like Texas. My phone mapped my location as unnamed road. It happens, but not on 281. The blue dot drifted even though I wasn't moving. A soft sound came from the trees, like someone setting down a glass on felt. Then the air shifted from after-storm cool to a pocket of warmer breath, like I'd opened a closet. A car approached slowly from behind, old engine, familiar whine. I checked the mirror. The car stopped 50 feet back. Its parking lights glowed amber. A man got out holding one of those paper maps you have to unfold like tablecloths. He wore a cap with no logo and waved the map once like a flag. "You lost?" I called. "Trying to find Marble Falls," he said. His voice had a drawl that wasn't modern, not the Austin exurb twang you hear now, but the old hill country music of vowels. "You're on 281, I said. "You're basically there." He glanced at the map, then passed me at the table. "Is that new?" "I've never seen it," I admitted. I wanted to say more, but my throat felt sandpapered. He looked over my shoulder once, then kept a polite distance. "You shouldn't stop here," he said in a tone I recognized from grandfathers giving advice. "It takes a mile when folks do." "What does?" I asked. He touched the edge of his cap and did not answer. He backed to his car, got in, and pulled out to pass without speeding up, giving me a look of such careful neutrality that it felt like a warning and a blessing at once. I stared at the table. The stain in the shape of Texas seemed darker now, like dampness rising to meet the night air. I fully intended to put the car in drive and go. Instead, I reached for the bottle in the trash barrel. It was heavier than it should have been and colder, like it had been sitting in shade all day. When I tipped it, the water made no sound. When I poured it onto the table, it pooled around the stain and stopped at a perfect border, as if the shape had a lip. Somewhere, a mile away or exactly where I stood, I heard brakes squeal and then the soft thud of a car meeting something that was not forgiving. The sound was neither near nor far. It was perfectly sized to the act of hearing itself. I put the bottle back. I got in the car. I drove. The radio returned to the traffic guy mid-sentence. The odometer read 67,414 still. Then, without ticking through the numbers, it read 67,415. The water tower rose on my right where it belonged. The billboard flickered with the broken bulb. The live oak hooked the sky like a crook. I breathed so hard for a second my vision glittered. When I told my grandmother, she nodded once and said, "They always said the state borrowed miles to even things out." The devil keeps his own ledger, though. He writes the miles he likes in pencil. Later, I went to look for that picnic table in the daylight. I didn't find it. I did find an old roadside park on a different road, abandoned, the concrete tables cracked, the barrels rusted. In the cracks of one table, water stood in a shape that wasn't Texas, wasn't anything I could name. It looked more like a footprint of someone who had never owned feet. I try not to stop on that stretch anymore. But when a storm has just passed and the sky is purple and the limestone is drinking and the radio makes a little skip, I grip the wheel and whisper mile markers like prayers. I never needed them before. Now they need me.